Britain's Conversation with Darren Adam.
So we have a partial result already in the 2017 general election. We know that the former MP David Ward will not be returned as the Liberal Democrat MP for the constituency of Bradford East. He has been barred by the party for standing once again after Tim Farron said his comments about Jews had been deeply offensive, wrong and anti-Semitic. Now, he had been chosen to run again until very recently, in fact. Eric Pickles standing up at Prime Minister's Question Time asking if Theresa May shared his disgust that a former member of this House criticised by the Home Affairs Select Committee for Anti-Semitism had been selected for Bradford East by the Lib Dems. Theresa May pretty much said yes. Now, we've touched on some of the things that he's said in the past. This isn't just about one text or one tweet or one comment. He said at one point he'd be willing to fire rockets from Gaza into Israel, for which he partially apologised. He said his comments weren't in support of firing rockets into Israel, and I'm sorry if it gave the opposite impression. He did tweet, the big question is, if I lived in Gaza, would I fire a rocket? Probably yes. He added, Ich bin ein Palestinian. The West must make up its mind which side is it on. He then subsequently said, no, of course I wasn't condoning the firing of rockets into Israel. Well, you can make up your own mind. I think it rather read and sounded like he was. 0345 6060 973 is my number. You can text 84850, tweet at LBC, email Darren at lbc.co.uk. How do we stamp out anti-Semitism from our society and from our politics? Tim Farron, fairly clear that David Ward's previous comments certainly fell into that category. We know, of course, the Lib Dems are far from the only party with difficulties in this area. Abbas is in Redbridge. Hi, Abbas.
Hi there. Good morning, Darren.
Hi there.
Just a couple of points. I mean, number one, I don't think you can stamp out any form of bigotry or racism completely, because unfortunately, there's always a small minority of people who are inherently racist or bigoted in their views. And I don't think the Jewish people are special in that. I think there are people who hate people just because of the pigment of their skin or their religion. Or their ethnic origin, whether it's Jewish or whether it's, other Semitic people that come from the region. But, I mean, just to allude a little bit on, or just to talk about a little bit on your last caller, I mean, some of the things that he was saying, it did almost seem that any criticism of Israel or of Zionism, because Zionism is not Judaism. Zionism is a political movement, and Judaism is a religion. And the two are not synonymous. They're not the same. People like Professor Norman Finkelstein, who himself is a Jew ethnically, whose parents, both survived, in the concentration camps, and his entire family on his mother's and his father's side were completely wiped out by the Nazis. He's regarded as a self-hating Jew because he's very, very critical of Israel and of Zionism, as is Chomsky, another Jew, who is also very critical. But these are people who have come to the conclusion that it is possible to separate a government from the people governed by that government, if you like. Exactly. A political movement is a political movement, and it's open to criticism. If you're an idiot... Well,
hang on. I don't even want to call it a political movement. I'm simply talking about the Israeli government and the policies enacted by that government as distinct and separate from any phrase such as the Jews or the Jewish community. Surely those are separate.
I mean, exactly. So if you generalise and make all Jews... I mean, that would be ridiculous, and I think you'd be quite wrong to say it in that way, and it would be bigoted. Of course it would be.
So here we are then with David Ward, who's been accused of that precisely because of that sloppiness, or at the very least sloppiness, around his language, talking about the Jews and the Jewish community rather than the State of Israel. I mentioned some of the other things that he said and tweeted. He plainly has a record on this, which has been sufficient for the Lib Dems and for Tim Farron to say his words, his deeds, his actions are anti-Semitic, and he needs to go. He's denying that he is anti-Semitic, but the determination has been made that he is. So if there is this issue, I'll ask again what you think that the solution is. It's a bit defeatist, if I might say so, Abbas, as you suggested, that we can never get rid of anti-Semitism or indeed any sort of similar bigotry. Shouldn't we at least try?
Well, of course we should, but I think also what we should also do, and I think we need, and if everyone needs to be sensible, which is that sometimes people don't always use the right words, that it doesn't come out in the right way, and that we shouldn't automatically just jump and say, you know what, this person is bigoted against all Jews. Jeremy Corbyn, all sorts of people have been accused of being anti-Semitic or being, sympathetic to anti-Semites. And clearly the guy's been fighting for years for, against bigotry and against these type of things. So I think we should be sensible and realise that human beings make mistakes. If they're prepared to apologise and say, look, I didn't mean it like that, it was meant like this, then I think we should sometimes, accept those apologies. I think sometimes we tend to sort of hold people to what they've perhaps said when it's not categoric or, completely empirical, analytical. It's somewhat a grey area. I think we should be a little bit more sympathetic. But clearly, if anybody is bigoted towards anybody, including the Jewish community, then quite frankly, they're stupid and they're idiots and they need to be dealt with. Of course they need to be, because we can't encourage people to encourage and fester sentiment which could potentially, fan the flames in the hearts of people who might do things that would be perhaps quite illegal in many ways.
Absolutely.
Or whatever,
Absolutely. It still strikes me that so much of this is about words, the sensitivity to the difference between them, and the importance of how we collectively choose to define these words. And maybe the first step here, towards something that looks like a solution to this most lengthy and intractable of problems is some sort of agreement as to what the sodding words actually mean. Because every time we have a conversation about this issue or anything even vaguely adjacent to it, we're talking about it this morning because of the sacking as a candidate of David Ward, this former MP, for being anti-Semitic. Whenever we have a conversation that's even in this territory, it seems that finding agreement on what the terms used actually mean occupies a very great deal of the time spent on the conversation, and that's perfectly fine, but it doesn't feel as if we're getting any closer to consensus about what these words actually do mean. Abbas in Redbridge, thank you for that. 03456060973.